Welcome to another episode of the 24 Astro podcast. In this one, I will talk about the archetype of Scorpio and the origin of this archetype. Because if we are looking at the zodiac wheel and unfolding the mythology behind all of the zodiac signs, it is a never-ending unfoldment, really. And with Scorpio, the depth feels endless. And the idea for doing this podcast is that the concept that we humans have, that when we are good, we are rewarded. We have this kind of like almost superstition when it comes to following a moral code. And when we are behaving bad, we are scared that we will be reprimanded or scolded by the universe. And this idea is very much in line with a child's mentality. It's exactly how a child, when they are, let's say it's a child that's like 5 years old, and when they do something that they know that their parents won't approve of, they feel guilt and shame. And they are scared that they will be caught, because then they will get the punishment. And this is the social conditioning that happens to a child when they learn how to question their instincts and develop an ego in order to fit into society's unspoken rules. And the unspoken rules are not ever taught to us in a literal sense, but we kind of gather the rules that we should follow. And this is what happens to a child from 0 to 18 and over, really. We get internalized voices, the conscience that tells us what to do. And this is a process that is needed in order for us to be civilized societies and work as a group, work as a whole. But the consequence of this is the shadow creation that happens, that we suppress certain parts, suppress certain instincts. And this social conditioning, it's very interesting to look at, to understand, because we do have, a lot of us have a lot of complex and trauma here. That we are scared that if we are showing this side, this quality, that you maybe got taught during your conditioning, that this quality is not appropriate socially. And then you get shame around it and you try to suppress it. And when the quality awakens due to maybe you see someone in your 3D world that triggers it, or you see it in someone else, and then you get a feeling of judgment, you judge them, you feel uncomfortable, and the shadow inside you comes up to the surface, and there's a dissociation that happens. This kind of discipline system that happens to us under the very formable years of 0 to adulthood, it's the same when it comes to religion and spirituality. And since you are a person that feels a resonance towards astrology, you do also have a relationship towards your soul. And depending on who you are, it's different. You might have a history of having religious upbringing or having people around you being religious and you are not someone that ever felt that calling. Or maybe you are practicing a religion. But the fact is that religion in its shadow has traumatized a lot of us. The separation between humanity, the different types of religion, and saying that one is better than the other, and then creating separation. And also that we get taught that if we sin, if we do things that are morally not okay, I will get punished. This kind of conscience installed in us creates a fear of us being evil. And this is what evil is. We get scared of ourselves, of our own shadows. And when the shadows come up to the surface, if we get triggered or if we see it in someone else, then we just create more separation. So we have multiple layers of conditioning. We have our own relationship towards the world, towards other people, towards the earth. And I would say that this is the spiritual conditioning that we get, that we receive. And it's very shaped by the philosophy of the people around us. And you might have to really heal your own relationship to... I'm getting a bit sad here. Because I find this very sad. Okay. That the religious, forced religion onto us kind of corrupted the whole system. Wanting to put authority onto your relationship to God, but with the church, because the church didn't trust that the goodness of the people would be enough. They needed to control so that the fear that is installed in people from the fear of being bad, it gets so perverted, it gets so contracted and so flipped into it actually generates more evil. Because it's not... If we think of, for example, intrusive thoughts, I do think this is very interesting as a concept in psychology. Intrusive thought is when the shadow, if we put it into that context, the shadow is so repressed that it tries to take over your psyche, and it's so suppressed, so controlled, so pushed down that it's like forcefully, if you imagine a rubber band and if you pull it back, eventually it will catapult forward. And this is what happens with intrusive thoughts. We've tried to control the shadow so much that eventually it takes over. And this is the psyche's function of trying to balance itself out. And here is where the Scorpio archetype comes in, that we can't be in this religious, spiritual conditioning and just strive to be the best or the cleanest or the purest, be in love all the time, and repress the darkness, repress the fear, the hatred that might be in us due to so much ancestral background. Maybe you have a grandpa that is homophobic or racist, and then you see that you are in this time now that it's not even a thing. Like, it's the opposite now. We don't like people that are this way. But when he was a child, it was the opposite. So it now gets triggered when you are with him, that it comes up that you start to internalize your disdain towards his worldview. So you judge him a lot in your mind when you are with him and you get triggered. And you start to feel separation between you two and think that you will never be on the same page. But the reality here is that this is something that exists in you too, that you just can't transcend. And you're trying to cling to the opposite in order to compensate for his imbalance. But if we look at it very logically, this person is related to you. That means that his worldview was transferred onto your mother, for example. So she heard his narrative of the world. And what time she was brought into her conditioning, maybe she also had resistance towards this and didn't resonate at all with him. Or maybe she didn't feel as strongly, so she might just have some stereotypical or racist remarks in her narrative that she's unaware of. And then it comes to your generation, and you feel a lot of resistance and you do not like it. But the narrative that your mother was grown up with, that gets transferred to you as well by osmosis, by you absorbing her worldview. And the grown-up path for a person is to realize what is unconscious, what did I absorb by my surrounding, and what is mine, what do I choose to believe in. So the reality for this person would be that they still have the same thoughts, the same worldview as their grandpa, but they are conscious enough, hopefully, to choose that they do not want to think this way. So the best thing to do for this person would be to accept that his grandpa is living in another paradigm and take responsibility for themselves and realize, I also have this in me, and I have also a resistance towards this. Holding both instead of clinging to one and suppressing the other part, because that creates a civil war. You will be having multiple sides of you that are like clashing heads. And this is not what we're wanting to do. We don't want to create separation internally. We want to strive for balance, harmoniousness. And this is where shadow work comes in. We need to give a voice. We need to understand what kind of invisible beliefs that we have, unconscious, that we absorbed, that we're trying to repress, that we do not want to listen to or hear, and be scared of them and push them down, because eventually they will come up to the surface. It's not possible to disown certain parts of your totality. So we want to learn to start to embrace all parts of us. This is how fear doesn't hold that big of a grip on you. Because when you're scared of these parts, maybe you have a fear of flying, let's say. Depending on how much fear you feel, that is how paralyzing it becomes. And this is where phobia comes in as another level on top of this. How much does the fear have a grip on you? So when it has so much grip on you that it's controlling your free will, your functioning, then it becomes this entity, this black hole that swallows up and stirs your life. And this is where fear has spun out of control. So fear creates more fear. So how can we hold fear? Repressing and trying to ignore it does not work. You might have had your own experience with this, your own realization where this does not work. Because if you suppress it, if you, for example, are scared of flying and you maybe think that the only thing that will make my fear not be as bad is if I force myself. And then you do that by trying to distract yourself, and eventually when you will go onto the plane, you will freak out and you will have a panic attack because your body doesn't feel safe. Your mind was pushing and distracting, and making you do something. But your totality, your body is still stuck in that fear in the back of the head, of giving you imagination, giving you pictures of the plane crashing or whatever is the fear. And then when you feel that, maybe when you hear that thought, you're trying to distract yourself. So you're just feeling uncomfortability in your body, you're feeling fear, and then you're contracting and then trying to distract yourself, watching something, watching your phone, going up and doing something to distract yourself. And then the build up, it just builds up, and your nervous system becomes so much in fight or flight because there's no coherence between body and mind. So this is why pushing through fear does not work, or repressing it, distracting yourself does not work. The coherence is the key, and that you do by teaching your body that it's safe. And you do that by exposure therapy, but little by little. So you do baby steps all the time. And then you start to create a trust between body and mind. And this is where true safety starts to cultivate inside the being. When you start to understand that fear of fear is the worst thing that can happen. And if you start to transmute the idea of, okay, I feel fear now, why? And take it as a signal instead. Take it as a signal to maybe check your narrative. What is your belief here? What can you do to give yourself safety in this moment? What can you do to support yourself? And take it more as this internal cue, the compass of what do you need. Here also, doing shadow work is a great way to start to dabble or start to dip your toe into whatever is the fear. So maybe you could, instead of giving control to the fear, to be a phobia, so that it's the next level, that it's actually hijacking your total awareness and just feeling fear in the body. Instead, doing some shadow work and trying to look at what am I actually afraid of. And maybe that would be just doing shadow work on this topic for a few minutes, and then if you start to feel resistance and fear, stop. And then do it some other day when you feel that you have the capacity. But we need to take away the load, the tension from this topic, from fear itself, because we can't be scared of the feeling of fear. We have it for a reason. It's very, very important for our survival to have fear. But it's when it's unbalanced and when we become scared of feeling fear. Because if we believe that feeling fear is a punishment, that something is wrong if we feel fear, and we're so scared of feeling fear that we just want to have this toxic positivism, that we believe that everything is wrong if I don't feel positive all the time, then that kind of narrative of, okay, I'm feeling fear, something is wrong, and then being scared instead of taking it as a curious thing. Okay, I'm scared now. I feel my body's tensing up. Why is this? What can I learn by this? That is two completely different takes on your feelings. And I've said this before. I think the purpose of Scorpio as an archetype is going into the darkness, going through it to find ourselves. So your highest priority should be if you are interested in how you evolve onto the next version of yourself. The highest thing should really be your relationship towards feeling fear. How much does it control you? And can you start to imagine shifting your relationship towards fear? Because imagine if you were not scared of feeling fear. Because most people are so scared of feeling uncomfortable that they don't do anything outside their comfort zone. But we want to be super comfortable outside our comfort zone, because the more comfortable we are, the more unstoppable we are. We don't want to be paralyzed by an internal prison of the fear that is put into us during conditioning. The fear of rejection, of being strange, of sticking out, of being too loud, being too much, being whatever is your wounding. We don't want to feel so much fear that it's hindering us from being who we are. We want to feel kind of excited by it, kind of like seeing it as an invitation to how can I become more? How can I become more fearless? Imagine that, like that's the magnetism that we want. That, like if that is your highest priority of shifting your relationship towards fear, that is really incredible. And again, to repeat this, creating safety, because I do believe that medicine for the Scorpio is in Taurus, the opposite side. And Taurus is everything to do with sensuality, meaning experiencing life with our senses. And over that, like if you're putting it in other words, you can say that it has a lot to do with being present. Not being too much in the mind, because when the mind is out of control, okay, this goes into a very interesting thing as well. If you want to, you could see it as the ego is a coping mechanism, a way for you, a personalized way for you to fit into society. So it is so much learned behavior. You have your social mask, your social persona. So the ego, if we identify with our ego and experience life through the ego, we will feel disempowered. Because the ego thrives out of being identified with certain qualities, certain aspects. We're someone that likes to do this. When we say that, it automatically makes that we do not like to do the opposite. Let me give you an example here. Let's say that I identify with a person that likes to read. So that would mean that I do not identify, kind of like obvious, but I do not identify with a person that does not read. So that would mean that I see some value. I was taught some value in seeing myself as someone that wants to read. Maybe I got taught that it's very smart to read, to expand your awareness. And it becomes kind of blurry here, because I can also just focus on my enjoyment of reading for my own sake. But when it becomes this identification, that is when it becomes tricky. That's when my ego, my social mask, starts to identify with it and sees it as something to be proud of. And if we're not careful here, we can start to judge people that are not the same as us. And it becomes this inferiority complex or superiority complex. And this is, I think I want to just bring it together a bit here. If we think of the ego as our social construct mask that we gain over our conditioning, our social conditioning from 0 to adulthood, when we are taught how to behave to be fit into the group for our survival. And along the way, we try to figure out who we are compared to other people. So we start to identify with certain things. We try out a lot of things and start to say that I am this, not that. And this creates shadows, and the shadows are pushed down into the unconscious. And the qualities that the social persona takes on is oftentimes the qualities that has been praised by our parents, by our peers. So they kind of shape us because we are children. We have a malleable mind here. We do not know how the world works yet, so we just absorb our surroundings, worldview. And this is where we adopt our parents' view of the world and our surroundings view of the world. And this is where we need to then, after we've been fully grown and developed, we need to realize what is ours, what do I myself approve of, and what is the unconsciousness of the past. What do I not want to bring forward? What does not resonate for me? And the ego, we have it because we want to survive socially. We want to fit into the group, and this happens a lot in unconscious ways that we don't even understand. And a lot of it is to fit into the group, so we have that idea of how we should be. And when we are reflected back that we are that social person, that social mask, we feel good about ourselves, we feel accepted and that we belong. But if someone points out our shadow, something that we have repressed and do not want to hear about, we become super triggered and feel separation. We feel hatred because we do not want to acknowledge this part of us, because we are scared that if they see this shadow, then I will not be accepted. And this balance all the time, this pendulum, the ego's swinging from wanting to be the social mask, the persona, and then being scared of being exposed as a bad person, is exactly the conditioning that happens also in religion. We want to be seen as a certain idea of ourselves because we believe that if we do, we are worthy to fit into the group, to be loved by our surroundings, by God, to be enough. But if we are showing our shadows, we're scared and feeling shame and guilt that we will be thrown out of society, of God will reprimand us and send us to hell. And this is the child's mind that continues on when we are living in ego and identifying with the qualities that we are thinking that we need to be. Because it's very human to search for meaning. We want to understand our surrounding because it gives us a sense of control. If we start to analyze and think of cause and effects with our consciousness, if we do this, then I will get this result. We kind of gain this illusion of control of our surrounding. And this is the same pattern that happens from us getting something. For example, if we get something, if something bad happens to us, let's say we get a disease or we lose our job, we oftentimes turn into ourselves and feel like victims because we are trying to gather some meaning into why this happened. And then we start to blame other people and ourselves, and it's the victim archetype that comes in because we are punishing ourselves from the idea that this bad thing happened because of this. And this is the toxicity of viewing the world as meaning-filled. If we view it as the duality that if I do this, I will get Y. And also the opposite, like if we have good luck, let's say, we have good fortune, and something good happens, then we think that, oh, it must be because I deserved it. Because we're trying to put meaning onto it. It's still the ego that does this, because we're wanting to control our outcome. But if we would take the ego away from this and not be a victim when something bad happens, but transcend it and decide to trust that this is part of the plan. This is part of the plan of my life, and then work on the resilience and the faith when things happen, and realize when you are in victim mode, when you are blaming other people or yourself, and take back your own power, because you're leaking power in the scenario. You're blaming and feeling guilt and shame. And this is the Garden of Eden, the duality, good and bad. Bad creates suffering, good creates clinging, the Buddhist concept of the mind. All right, let me see if there was something else that I wanted to bring in. Okay, so maybe this is the darkness, the evil, the concept of evil. I don't mean it like a literal devil, but fear I view as evil. Because it is very hypnotic, it sucks in energy. It becomes this black hole. And this is where we need to be careful. We can step out, but we need to catch ourselves when we are getting into the contracting energy. The opposite here would be choosing love instead, choosing faith. And seeing it as, of course, I'm always worthy, always worthy. Everyone is worthy. No one is better than anyone else. We're just innately worthy of love. And trusting the plan. And this is easily said than done. This takes constant practice. If we have been a lot in disempowerment before and being in fear, in victimhood, this will be the autonomic thing that happens. We will slip back into this pattern time and time again. But it's just a matter of reminding ourselves. And this is the path. So the Taurus medicine here, the archetype of Taurus, it's slowing down, enjoyment, and presence. And this is really like the feminine archetype of receiving. And since it is the opposite sign of the zodiac wheel to Scorpio, and Scorpio is the intensified wanting and needing to be rebirthed through the pressure cooker of being in darkness, being in evil, being in the black hole, time and time again, being in victimhood, feeling so much of this darkness. Eventually it needs light. And you might get it in dosages. Maybe you are a person that has very bad periods, and then eventually it turns. But if you are not realizing what happens about the disempowerment and empowerment, then you are just a victim to your circumstance. So you might get in a good period for a few weeks and then something happens again. And instead of meeting it as a challenge, you're taking it as defeat, taking it as it's showing you that you did something bad, and then it triggers the victim archetype, and then you slip back. And here I want to bring in Pluto. So checking where you have your Pluto in what house and what sign, there you have a really good key to understand where this pattern is happening for you. Where you have this blind spot. I love that word because it's such a good word to use when you're talking about the unconscious, because it's happening but without our registering awareness. So there's something that we can't see yet. And for me, in my understanding, Pluto is exactly this. It's where you are feeling disempowered, where you are in victimhood, but where you are invited into transmuting this into taking back your power. But you need to realize where it's like vacuuming in your energy unconsciously. So you could do shadow work on your Pluto. You could, if you look at the zodiac sign Pluto is in, you get some ideas of the themes. If you look at the house, you can see where in my life, in what area can I see it in. And then you can start to analyze, use ChatGPT to get some direction when doing shadow work. Because shadow work is called shadow work for a reason. It's in the shadow, it's in the unconscious, so we don't understand it yet. We don't have words put onto it yet. So we need some type of direction, because we might feel overwhelmed because we don't know where to start. So it's good to have someone that holds some kinds of framework for you. And then again, to feel into your body, when do you feel like it's enough? When can you pause and come back? And then working with the Taurus energy all the time, of the slowness, the sensuality, the presence, slowing down, being in receptive mode, and then eventually transmuting your relationship towards fear, to not feel as controlled by fear. Because in the present moment, in the here and now, that's where we really practice surrendering. If we trust the present moment, if we can let down our guards of our coping mechanism / ego, if we trust that whatever happens to us now in this moment, I will be able to handle it. I trust my plan, I trust myself, I trust God, and I can handle whatever happens. And imagine the senses. Imagining the senses and being present, this is a receptive mode of the reality. We're just receiving signals from the universe. So if we're outside and it's windy, and if we feel the wind on our skin, we're receiving the wind. If we're drinking water and feeling the water drip down our throat, go into our body and nourish us, we're receiving the water. The same with food, the same with air. We're receiving. And this is what the ego really craves, because we're so in the masculine society, the patriarchal residue of still like being so active, being so stressed, doing everything, being efficient, that we're doing. The masculine is so evolved internally. We have AI as a proof of how far the consciousness, the masculine part of our psyche, has come. But the feminine, the slow, the receptive, the body, the feminine, that is not really still being so prioritized. It really doesn't fit into the hurriedness, the stressed, efficient society. It's not standard yet to bring down tempo. And this is the reflection of the yin-yang imbalance that happened for so many years. And now it's like the top, I feel. Like it's the top of the modern society's patriarchal residue, like catching up with us. And the body is telling us no. It's making us overeat, it's making us super stressed. People are burnt out because we're not being in receptive mode. And this is becoming more and more now. Thankfully, it's becoming more and more, but it has a long way to go. And having this yin-yang lens of how we view ourselves, how much are you in mind? How much are you in body during the day? It's also very telling, because we do not really trust the feminine approach of just receiving. We feel like when we are in slowness, when we are just being, it's not enough. And this is something that is very collective, like happening to all of us, that we have this impatience because we feel like we're scared of not keeping up with everyone else. It's this masculine overactive part that has not learned how to receive. And this we also need to incorporate. This is where the body doesn't feel secure enough to go into the shadows. It's concerned with productivity also. And if we have an overactive mind, if we're scared and fearful and the mind's trying to control everything around us, we will have a big separation between body and mind. I feel like I always talk very much in waves and just listen to whatever comes up in my mind, but I kind of also want to summarize. But I believe that if this resonates for you, then maybe listen to this again, because I feel like it's like this with everything. If we listen to it a few times, then we can hear different things every time. So I think I will actually leave it here and trust that you take from this whatever you were meant to take from this. And I really resonate with Mars being the ruler for Scorpio, and also Pluto as a modern ruler, of course, but Mars being this warrior archetype, going into the shadows for the love of humanity and not wanting to be in the prison, the mental prison of social conditioning and being stuck in darkness. I think it's very, very important tasks that we're doing with the Scorpio archetype. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.